This video explains the solving proportions with equations foldable. So first of all, what do you need to find? Read the problem carefully to identify what piece of information is missing. This will be represented by a variable in your proportion. Paloma walked 0.75 miles in 15 minutes. If she continues walking at the same pace, how long will it take her to walk 3 miles? So the missing info is obviously her time to walk 3 miles. What do you need to know? Read the problem carefully again to identify what pieces of information you have. What do you already have? The amounts and the units are important. This is where I am looking for the unit ratio. Let's say look for the unit ratio. All right, so furthermore, again, Paloma walked 0.75 miles in 15 minutes. If she continues walking at the same pace, how long will it take her to walk 3 miles? We know that we are comparing miles to minutes. Therefore, I know my unit ratio, and I know that her rate is 0.5 miles in 15 minutes. That's my given ratio. That's my given information. So using that, we are going to set up a proportion. Keeping the units in the same place on both ratios. All right, so that is super important, keeping it in the same place. So that is where my unit ratio comes into play. Unit ratio. This is going to help me to set up the rest of my math correctly. So 0.75 is miles, that's my numerator. 15 minutes, denominator. We are asked how far in 3 miles, so we know that has to go in my numerator. I'm looking for how many minutes, so there's my x. Solving my proportion, based off my previous knowledge, I can use what I know and try to figure out how do I get from 0.75 times something to give me 3, and then I can use that scale factor to multiply 15 to get my x. However, off the top of my head, personally, I don't know what I multiply 0.75 by to get 3. So I'm going to use my backup method I'm learning in 7th grade. All right, we're going to set up our proportion and solve one-step equation to find the missing information. This is where we cross multiply and divide by the coefficient. All right, so again, coefficient is that front number right next to x. So in this particular example, I'm going to divide both sides by that 0.75. Alright, so I'm going to cross multiply and get 0.75 times x is equal to 15 times 3. 15 times 3 is 45. Divide both sides by 0.75 and I get x to be 60. To turn that into an answer that makes sense of my context of my problem, my sentence to interpret my answer and make sense of my answer is that she walks 3 miles in 60 minutes. Now I'm going to check this just to kind of use my number sense, my background, to see if this makes sense. Well, 0.75 is obviously less than 15, so 3 had better be less than this number. Okay, we're good. I can also say that I can multiply 15 times 4 to get 60 and check 0.75 times 4, and that would give me 3 as well. So I know that my two proportions, 0.75 over 15, is equivalent. That's what we're going for, that equivalent, the equivalent sign, that equal sign. These two fractions have to be equal. And then I can use this ratio to solve that one, and which they are. So we can check our answer by cross multiplying to ensure our answer is correct. When I say 15 times 3, I get 45. When I say 0.75 times 60, I get 45. These guys are equivalent. They are equal. Therefore, I know that this is correct.